Welcome back to Dinar Trend Tracker channel. We are carefully reviewing a large number of stories that have surfaced in the past 24 hours, drawing interest from communities concerned about developments involving global currencies. These reports, which come from various financial networks and independent monitoring sources, all seem to be about the same thing: the supposed confirmation of liquidity for the group known as Tier 4B. This particular label is thought to denote private persons or organizations that are registered inside a system intended for a possible revaluation process and possess particular currencies, mainly the Iraqi Dinar and the Vietnamese Dong. Rumor has it that active internal banking systems are being observed, rather than just supposition. When back-end financial databases show that funds are available and authorized to travel through defined, secure channels, it is said to be liquidity confirmed. We are moving from a state of preparation to an execution state if this development is confirmed. Why are these signals attracting so much attention? Because they are said to be coordinated across separate, autonomous platforms. This event's long-discussed mechanics may have been set in motion, according to a convoluted story involving digital handshakes and system authorizations deep within the financial architecture. This is the meat and potatoes of the current news story. It's the first technical requirement before anything more public-facing could happen. It is critical to clarify the terminology used in these new reports, so that everyone can understand them. Within the context of this subject, the word Tier 4B refers to a certain classification. Government agencies and large financial institutions are normally placed in separate categories. Tier 4B, on the other hand, refers to everyday people and private entities who have acquired and held currencies such as the Iraqi Dinar or the Vietnamese Dong over time. And these are the individuals who are known to have been involved in this particular possible occurrence, but who are not part of the larger institutional financial system. Liquidity confirmation, the second critical concept, also has a very specific significance here. This in no way indicates that there are public swaps available right this second. Instead, it's a verb for something that happens in the background internally. This would indicate that the complex processes and software used to handle large-scale financial settlements have received the required approvals and have detected that the allocated money are available, validated, and prepared to be used. The digital green light inside the closed network of the banking system must precede any future exterior operations, and this is a crucial difference between system readiness and authorization. Examining these nightly reports in further detail reveals the notion of transactional access codes. This jargon serves a basic but vital purpose, despite how complicated it seems. Digital keys or permissions are the best ways to define these codes. Secure accounts, segregation and purposeful preparation of cash are all possible within the intricate framework of global finance. However, a sequence of digital authorizations is required before they may be transferred or accessed. The data suggests that what is being monitored is the activation of these codes. This would imply that the systems chosen to store the money for the Tier 4B exchanges have supposedly been granted the digital authorization to access the broader financial networks and handle transactions. You have to do it in two parts. The availability and auditability of the funds are prerequisites for their transfer, which in turn requires approval. This second phase allegedly recently took place, according to the current news. Release of such authorization codes has traditionally been the normal operating practice that marks the beginning of the operational phase in any big large-scale financial makeover or at a nomination. As a result, onlookers are taking the reports at its value as a technically challenging but critically significant phase in the process, the opening of the liquidity gates for this particular group. The synchronization component, say financial analysts, is what distinguishes the present surge of reports from prior eras of increased speculation. Data from the past might have indicated change in one area while another stayed the same. The changes that have occurred overnight, however, are marked by the extraordinary and coordinated alignment of a number of different financial systems. All signs point to Iraq's internal reforms and system upgrades being fully operational at this point. Their exchange rate structures are being finalized and international compliance standards, like ISO 20022, and the SWIFT network upgrades are being fully integrated. It has been said that Vietnam has done the same thing at the same time, becoming ready for digital settlements and to conform to new global asset frameworks by updating its own banking infrastructure. According to experts, it's significant since the economies of these two countries seem to be moving in tandem. Additionally, there have been whispers that Western banking institutions are also quietly taking preparatory steps, updating their internal currency placeholders for the dinar and the dong, mirroring this movement in the East. It is strongly suggested that this is not a standalone test, but rather a coordinated, worldwide integrated activation due to the three-way synchronization in Iraq, Vietnam, and Western financial institutions OP. These customized financial reports also reveal an intriguing information about the identification of internal test transactions. Information showing minor transfers of monies has been made public by a number of independent monitoring groups that focus on watching the logs of back-end banking system bureau. Reportedly, these are happening in the liquidity pools linked to the Tier 4B framework, which are separate from holding accounts. Institutional financiers around the globe consider this a crucial and customary process. Verification of the system stability is required prior to authorizing a flood of transactions. The newly activated payment channels are used to send little symbolic amounts, often as little as cents or $1, to accomplish this. The objective is to ensure error-free communication between the sender and receiver accounts, secure digital connections, and functioning authorization codes. It is being seen as a sign that the test phase is active and successful, as such activity is now supposedly showing up on nightly records. It's like doing a last systems check for your finances. Although the public doesn't observe any changes on their retail banking applications, this activity within the system indicates that a machine is getting ready to run at maximum capacity, proving that the architecture is responsive and live on the inside. Sources within the banking institutions have allegedly provided other supporting material, in addition to the observation of test transfers. No public-facing websites are accessible from the accounts of employees and observers. Instead, they have access to the internal screens of the systems used by traders and bank managers for foreign exchange monitoring. These reports claim that the Iraqi Dinar and the Vietnamese dong (VND) listings have been changed. For example, they are now identified with a new placeholder status, which is typically referred to as pending rate update or anything along those lines. Such a condition does not manifest accidentally or due to a bug in the highly controlled world of banking software. System administrators intentionally set this flag to show that the currency's data field is now unlocked and waiting for a new official value, which is not yet ready to be shown publicly. Prior to redenominations or revaluations of national currencies, this technical sequence has been noted. The presence of the expenditure status is considered as a strong technical clue, even though no particular rate has been made accessible. It appears that the reevaluation process is now underway and is patiently waiting for the final approval to provide the updated data. For many, the next natural question is what private holders can do in light of these reports of verified liquidity and active system codes. This activation is required before redemption appointments may be scheduled, according to the long-described framework. There appears to be a covert network of authorized redemption facilities that are ready to go at this very second, according to the report. The exchange process can be handled in a secure, controlled, and compliant environment at these facilities. As previously said, the subsequent step would comprise notifying participants in Tier 4B. These alerts would tell holders how to set up an appointment by encrypted emails, private connections, or other confirmed routes. In order to establish their identity and validate their money, individuals would have to go through a rigorous verification process during these visits. To guarantee the authenticity of each participant and each note, this entire process is based on strong anti-fraud and international compliance standards, including Know Your Customer and key regulations. New accounts would be funded after the funds were verified. The type of the accounts that would receive the traded money is a major point of contention in relation to this event. An entirely new financial infrastructure is continuously referenced in the reports as being integral to this reevaluation process. Reports frequently use the term quantum financial framework to describe this new system. a way of describing a system of financial transactions that is supposedly not digitally secure or backed by assets. It appears that the Tier 4B exchanges are not only depositing their funds into the conventional banking system, as has been the case for decades, if the reports are to be believed. This new, parallel organization would instead credit them to accounts. As far as the theories are concerned, this serves a function. Goal is to establish a safe and open system for managing the increased liquidity. According to the authors, this system is drastically different from the old debt-based fiat approach. Many observers saw the activation of Tier 4B exchanges as more than just a currency event. It is seen as the first public-facing application of this new financial operating system, which is supposedly more open. Since the asset-backed currency structure is fundamental to the story of this revaluation, let's go into it more. Central banks and financial institutions around the world have been moving away from using currency that is solely backed by government edict, known as completely fiat currency, for a number of years. There has been a shift toward monetary systems that link the purchasing power of a currency to real commodities like oil, gold and silver. Although this is not an entirely novel concept, it would represent a sea change if put into practice on a worldwide basis. All of the news about the revaluations of the dinar and the dong revolve around this change. The reasoning behind the revaluation of both currencies is that the two countries in question, Iraq and Vietnam, have substantial and quantifiable natural and industrial resources. They did this by linking these assets to their currencies. They set a clear and immutable standard of value that cannot be manipulated like a fiat system could. Since the asset-backed system is now operational and prepared to receive these new asset-secured funds, reports stating that Tier 4B liquidity is confirmed are taken at face value. It seems like the infrastructure for a new financial age is ready and waiting to be used. The way this event is supposedly developing is also being closely watched by observers. This action stands out for its serene accuracy, in stark contrast to the often dominantly chaotic financial news. There has been zero observable disturbance to the international monetary system, zero market panic, and zero public pronouncements. This is intentional, say analysts. If not managed properly, a big financial transformation like this could lead to widespread instability. Under the radar, with the underlying mechanisms and processes tweaked long before the general public becomes aware of the change, have frequently been the most successful and significant monetary developments in history. The news has already reached the mainstream by the time the new reality has stabilized and been established. It would appear that the present scenario is following this same plan. While rumors abound in certain online groups, the nuts and bolts of the new liquidity and rates are apparently being ironed out overnight, behind closed doors, and unnoticed by the general public. Viewed as another evidence of its validity, this deliberate rollout implies a procedure overseen by respectable financial institutions as opposed to an ad hoc, uncontrolled market occurrence. Putting these changes in the perspective of the larger global economy is also essential. There is context for this purported activation. As a result of inflationary pressures, shifting global trade balances and intricate geopolitical reorganization, economies worldwide are coping with considerable readjustment. The economic landscapes of Iraq and Vietnam have changed dramatically in this context. After a tumultuous start to recovery, Iraq has finally stabilized its political position, strengthening its position in international trade by updating its banking laws and utilizing its substantial oil reserves. Its efforts to satisfy the requirements of international organizations for conformity have been commendable. Meanwhile, Vietnam's export-based economy has been growing at a rapid pace, and the country has become a major player in the global manufacturing and technology sectors. The monetary systems of both countries have been substantially improved. Joining the next wave of financial innovation requires using digital tools and adhering to global compliance rules. The changes that were implemented over a period of time were seen as essential in preparing for this exact situation, which allowed their currencies to be valued at a new, more stable level. Those who have held these currencies for a while may be wondering what to make of the reports of confirmed liquidity after all this anticipation. Many have stuck with this subject for at least 10 years, through the many iterations of false information and rumors. The current information is being seen as the result of that protracted wait because it focuses on technical, back-end verification. Keep your cool and be well prepared, say financial commentators who follow this area. Be vigilant and disciplined. This is not the time for hasty responses. Phase 2, assuming everything goes according to plan, is going to center on checking and making sure that conforming processes are strictly followed. Methodical action will be taken by the banks and redemption centers. Be patient and wait for official, verifiable communication through the established secure channels. These critics are advising holders to double-check their paperwork. Following the specified protocols to a T is essential for a successful outcome in this controlled process. The main point being spread is that people should pay attention to the facts and not get caught up in the conjecture and hoopla that usually comes with these kinds of occurrences. Technically speaking, the financial infrastructure has gone from a standby to an operating condition once Tier 4B liquidity is confirmed. Reports indicate that the data links connecting the national treasury systems, commercial banks designated as redemption centers, and central banks are operational. Rather than the old-fashioned financial cables that have been in use for decades, these connections are said to be new encrypted channels that can communicate confirmed confirmation codes instantly. An important step toward realizing this vision of a unified network is the ability for all systems to interact with one another and verify transactions instantly. With its emphasis on safe, instant verification to forestall fraud, it signifies a giant leap forward in the digital revolution of international banking, mistakenly or via trickery. If this new architecture works as promised, it has the potential to make transactions faster and more transparent than before. Accordingly, this sophisticated, interconnected financial network is considered to have passed its first significant test with the activation of Tier 4B. Other nuanced indicators have also been pointed out by financial experts and data analysts who track international monetary flows. In the data on interbank settlements, they have noticed some new trends. Variations in the processing timeframes and security verifications for cross-currency transactions have been identified, although they are not significant. The term, back-end recalibration, frequently describes this process. Such small-scale changes cause ripples whenever a system of this magnitude adopts a new way of operating or incorporates a new set of principles. Delays in settlements are possible. It is necessary to update liquidity thresholds and distribute new security keys throughout the network. The fact that these small changes are supposedly being noticed at the same time in different banking locations adds weight to the idea that something big is happening underneath. For technicians, these minute details are the first and most trustworthy public signs that something major is happening under the surface, even though the ordinary person can't see them. Additionally, they are in perfect harmony with the mentions of the activation of Tier 4B liquidity. Keep in mind that this kind of reassessment is happening all throughout the world, not just in one place. International investments, regional commercial ties, and global oil contracts are all directly affected by the Iraqi currency's movement. Supply chains in manufacturing, export agreements, and FDI flows will all be affected by a change in the value of the Vietnamese currency. That these two countries have aligned under one large liquidity event is, thus, very noteworthy. Many analysts see it as the beginning of a much broader financial rebalancing. In this story, the protagonist works to rectify long-standing economic inequities. It is said that developing economies with abundant resources and industrial potential are finally being given a fair chance to climb the global financial ladder. This is why many consider the confirmation of Tier 4B liquidity as a bold move toward a new economic model that is multipolar and more equitable in its distribution of value, rather than merely a chance for people to make some extra cash. Specialized financial analysts are currently recommending their audiences to constantly monitor developments but to avoid speculation at all costs. Many are describing the next 2 days as a crucial window. During this time, financial institutions should be concluding internal tests to ensure the new connections are stable, and harmonizing all domestic and international treasuries. We can go on to the first official communications after this last internal check is finished. The motion starts below the surface long before it becomes visible on the coast, much like watching the tide shift. All mechanical indicators point to operational, stable, and actively operating internal systems. Also worth mentioning is the reliability of the reports from outside sources. When many separate networks start to report the same operational changes with the same technical language and no big discrepancies, it's seen as a strong indication of a true occurrence in financial reporting. This cohesive voice gives the impression that the present reports are capturing actual system advancement rather than merely restating past tales. Finally, the Dinar and Dongholdersop liquidity confirmation that was briefly published overnight is being seen as much more than simply another financial story. The shift that has been talked about and anticipated for a long time is finally starting to take shape, and this is how it is being portrayed. During the time that these intricate mechanisms are supposedly going live, the new rates are supposedly being activated, and the new asset-backed framework is supposedly taking form. Years of structural preparation have finally paid off. It heralds a subtle but calculated change in the global economy as a whole toward a system based on openness, fairness, and quantifiable assets. Everything we know so far from our expert sources suggests that this is the real start of that new chapter. If these allegations are true, we are seeing a subtle change in the financial stage, a point of control. This is the meat and potatoes of the data we're following. Arriving to the NAR vision, we appreciate your company.